So let's take a look at buying, renting, and leasing. Specifically, we're going to take a look at these two examples and how to compare and contrast how they look after 3 years. Okay? This is mostly going to be a practice in how to use the various skills and isn't necessarily a perfectly accurate depiction of how these two scenarios would play out. There's a few curveballs in there that don't necessarily happen a lot, but it's just so that we can show off the math. It's like somebody going to a store and buying 17 watermelons. Nobody does that, but they do it in math questions, so that's just how it is. Okay, so we're going to deal with this one over here first. So I'm going to get rid of this one just for now. I'm going to store it over here. It's a secret tool that we'll use later. Okay, we're going to do a bunch of math with this one here. Now, I'm going to be using the Tvm Solver today, and in previous videos I've had that kind of off to the side here for us to see. But there's going to be a lot of different math in here that I think we're just going to use this space for math and not shrink the screen this time. So I am still using the same Tvm Solver, I'm just using it over on a different screen, so you won't be able to see it. But if you need to see how to enter information into that solver or how to get to it, just go to any of the previous videos and the information should be there. Okay, let's get started. So our first situation here is about Helen and Tim. So Helen and Tim have bought a house for $249,900. They've got a down payment of 5%. The mortgage is compounded semi-annually at 5.5%, there's a rate, and has a 20-year term paid monthly. Okay. What didn't fit here is that when they go to sell the house, they found that it has depreciated in value, so it has gone down in value by about 10%. Okay. So there's a lot going on here. And in addition to that, they're selling after 3 years. So first we have to figure out where are they at 3 years, how much money have they paid, and how much money will they have to pay to get out of that house. Since it's depreciated, they might lose money on that. Okay, so we're going to do those calculations. But first I'm going to list out just the things that they'll make money on, the things that they'll have spent. Okay, so the things that they've spent. So first up, right off the top, is the down payment. Right, it was spent, you can't really get it back. So that's done. Next up, throughout each of the months, we have spent all of the payments. Right, so we'll need to know what the payments are so we can figure out how much we spent in payments. Right, so that's how much they've spent, but there's also other things that they owe. Like when they get out of the house, they still have a mortgage, so they have to pay back the remaining mortgage. Now you might be wondering, well, how are they going to do that? That should be thousands of dollars. Well, that's because you still get to earn back any of the costs from the sale, right? So they will earn the value of their home. Okay, so we're going to have to figure out what is the down payment, how much was paid out through payments, how much is there left to pay, and then the value of the home right now. And then we can put all of this together to figure out how much money they made or lost overall over 3 years. Okay, so let's make ourselves a little bit of room here. Bye-bye. Okay, start right at the top. Start with down payment. So we have a value of $249,900, and we want 5% of that. So we're just going to multiply by 0.05, which is 5% turned into a decimal. So if we multiply that together, we will get 12,495. Okay, so that's the down payment that was paid immediately. This is, I'll put in red actually. This is one of the things that we paid. Okay, so that's the down payment. Call it number 1 there. Done. Number 2 here, the payments. Now to find the payments, we're going to have to use the Tvm Solver. Okay, so again, I'm doing the same thing that we did before. I'm just not necessarily showing you all the steps here on the side. So we're looking at the payments here through the Tvm Solver. So that is the number of terms total the percent as a percent, the interest as a percent rather, the present value, the current value of the loan, the payments, which is what we're looking for, the future value, the payments per year, and the compounding periods per year. So if we fill this in real quick, we know that we've got monthly payments, so 12 months in a year, times 20 years for the term. So we have 240 terms. Our interest is going to be 5.5%. Our present value is the current value of whatever they had to take out for the loan. So the value of the home that they were buying was $249,900, but they already paid $12,495 of that because of the down payment. So if we subtract those two values, we'll get the actual value of the loan, which is $237,000 and $405 as well. $237,405. Okay, that's our present value. Payment, don't know it, we're trying to find it. Future value, a loan at the end of its term goes to 0. Payments per year is 12. Compounding periods per year is 2, since it is compounded semi-annually, twice a year. Okay. So if we stick all of that in the Tvm Solver, we will be given the value for the payments of $1,624.78. Which is of course negative since you're paying it out. Okay. So that's our payment, but that's not all we paid. Since we paid this for 3 years at 12 months a year, we know that we can say we made this every month, so 12 times 3 years will give us 12 times 3 is 36. So we take this and multiply it by 36, and we get $58,492.08. Okay, so that's another value that we are paying. That is how much has been paid into the loan. Okay, so now we're left with our remaining mortgage in the spent category. Now we're running out a little bit of room here, so we're just going to shrink things down a little bit. Just a moment. There we go. So the numbers that we made are still visible thanks to those nice little boxes. It's a good tip if you're writing a test to do that so that your teacher can find all your work. Okay, so let's look at the remaining mortgage here. So number 3, we're looking for the mortgage after 3 years. Looking at a loan at a certain point in the loan's period is a great thing to use the Tvm Solver for, so let's do that. So we've got our number of terms, we've got our interest rate, we've got our present value, we've got our payments, which we now know, we've got our future value, and we've got our payments per year and compoundings per year. Now most of this will be the same since it's the same loan, right? The compounds per year, of course, is 2, payments per year is 12, monthly. Future value, we still want it to go to 0, but this is part way through the loan, so it hasn't gone to 0 just yet. So really, we don't know what that is, and that's what we're trying to find out. The payment can be pulled from the other question here, so that is negative 1624.78. Important that it's negative since you're paying it away from yourself. The present value is the starting value of the loan, which we found to be $237,405. The interest rate is still 5.5, and the N, the number of terms, we know that there are 12 terms in a year, and we're looking at 3 years in. So 12 times 3 equals 36 terms for this one. Okay, so now we can go ahead and find our future value here. So using the Tvm Solver, we find this value to be negative $215,992.56. Okay, now that is the grand majority of what was actually owed in the first place, right? It hasn't gone down much. And the reason for that is that when you're paying down a mortgage, your first few years go primarily to the interest on that mortgage. Until you start reducing the principal, most of it just goes to the money that you're paying to rent the money. Okay, so unfortunately, the earlier on in your mortgage that you're selling a house, the more likely it is that you're going to be losing money. Okay, so now we have all 3 numbers that we expect to be losing in this transaction. So let's look at the positive here. Let's look at what are we expecting to gain, right? Because this house is still worth something. We can still sell it. So let's take a look here. Again, I'm just shrinking this to get it out of the way. So the value of the home. We know that the house has depreciated, and what that means is that the value has gone down. We know it's gone down by 10%. Okay, so if we say, let's just make this blue right there. If we say that this house's value was $249,900 and it depreciated by 10%. So that means that we had the value of the home, which was the whole is 1, minus 10%, or 0.1 is a decimal. We multiply those together. We get 249,900 times 0.9, which makes sense. We've got 90% of the value left if we've lost 10%. So if we take those together, we take 249,900, and then we multiply by 0.9, we should get 224,910. Okay, that's how much the house is worth. So if we assume that we're able to sell the home for its exact worth, rarely that happens, but just for the purpose of math, we'll say it does, then we will be gaining this much money while losing these three values. So we're looking to take this value and reduce it by these values, which means that we want to use subtraction. Right? So if we take this number down here, again, I'm just going to color code it, 224,910, and then we subtract each of these here, we'll get 12,495, as well as 58,492 and 8 cents. And of course, our final value up there, the 215,992 and 56 cents. Okay, so if we add up all the money that we actually are paying out here to see how much we actually paid, we get, I'll just rewrite the formula here, 224,910 minus, and then in the red corner we've got $286,979.64 is how much is owed. So if we calculate that, we put that together, we subtract those two values, 224,910 minus 286,979.64, we get negative $69.64. It's a lot of sixes. So we can tell that we definitely lost a significant sum of money here. Now part of that is because the house depreciated, right? You expect to earn back that money on the house, but it's also because we cashed out at the start of a mortgage, which tends to be mostly in interest payments, right? If you're cashing out closer to the end of the mortgage or even partway into it, you can usually recoup a little bit more of those funds, as houses tend to appreciate, not depreciate. So again, this is a strange scenario for a homeowner, but it is the scenario we're working with today. So we've got the number for Helen and Tim. Now we just need to look at the other case and compare them. So moving on over. So Don and Pat are renting a house for $1,600 per month. So we know we've got monthly, so 12 months in a year, times 3 years gives us 36 times they would have had to pay rent. So 1,600 times 36 will give us 57,600. And that's it, that's all, right? We're just looking at rent right now. They don't sell anything at the end, it's just paid into the void. So this is just a complete loss. There's no chance to regain money. However, if we were to compare Don and Pat to our previous couple here, Helen and Tim are currently doing worse because the house depreciated, right? So because the house depreciated, their return went down. Because they cashed out early, their return went down. Whereas Don and Pat, they lost all that money, but they didn't plan to stay in that location for a long time. 3 years, it sounds like a long time. It's really not that long of a time. So it looks like Don and Pat might have been a little bit smarter here because they knew they were doing short term, so they chose to rent instead of buy and not have to pay for all those interest costs up front and not have to lose money due to an unexpected depreciation. Okay, so I know that's a lot of math, but breaking it down into steps, it's not too bad. And remember, this is a video, so you can go back and just rewatch steps if you need to. It's all just different ways of doing the same thing, which is just problem solving and using the TVM solver to find values that we don't have so that we can talk about how different financial situations compare. Because you could imagine that if Helen and Tim and Don and Pat weren't two different couples that were comparing how they were doing financially, but were instead just two different choices that you could make, whether you would be buying a house or renting a place, right? You would do this kind of calculation to figure out, well, if I'm going to be there for so many years at this percent with this down payment, can I afford those payments? How much is it going to cost me in the long run? Is it better to rent or is it better to buy? Okay, so this is just all about those tools and how to figure out and compare and contrast the benefits of buying versus renting.